Good morning. This is Robin with Hope from the Well, and I have Connie McIntosh with me today. Connie, I'm so glad you're here.
Good morning. I'm delighted to be here, always.
Yes, and we're going to be talking about women of the Bible, and so we're going to start that in just a few minutes. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be speaking about women of the Bible, so we're excited about that. We just had our polar bear walk, and so if you're listening to this and you did not get to sponsor us for that, you can still help out and sponsor a student here for $25 or the whole group for $300.
Wow!
So we're still taking donations for the polar bear walk. That's one of our most the biggest event that we have, as far as that or the camel walk for the year. We just love those two events. But this year is our 25th. We're celebrating 25 years of ministry.
Congratulations.
And so we're going to have a banquet.
Imagine the women whose lives you have touched.
Well,
the Lord has touched through you.
Through this house, and we're sitting in the Women at the Well, the house today. And through this house, thousands have come through, but 150 have completed the program, the whole 15 months.
That's still a very good percentage from, if you look at other programs, that's still a good percentage.
Yes, and many of them are still living for the Lord, and most of them are. So November the 14th of 24, we're going to have a banquet celebrating that 25th anniversary.
I'm looking forward to that. I missed the years that was not done.
And so we're going to do it up this year, and we're going to have it at Faith Farms on the November the 14th. So be looking for that in the future. We also are planning a women's conference. Our theme is Wonderfully Made Well. That's the name.
That's a vision for sure. Wonderfully made well.
And on May the 11th, and we'll have some special speakers, and some of our folks will be speaking at this banquet. I mean, it's a conference, and we're looking so forward to that. This is something new we've never done, so we're excited about that here. Also, on March the 1st and 2nd, that's the first Friday and Saturday of the month, we will have a well sale, and we've had those several of those in the past. And it will be at the community building at the Wesleyana Methodist Church on County Road, I think 609. And so be looking for that as well. And we also have one planned for April the 19th and the 20th. So if you have things to donate for that sale, we're taking those now. So just give us a call here at Women at the Well to donate those items.
That even sounds fun, but a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. And our interns are doing that to help raise money to support them. And one of the ones we did in the past helped one of our interns go to Guatemala.
Yes, we know, and she was very successful in her trip there as to what she accomplished.
Yes. Well, all right, Miss Connie, we're just going to go ahead and get started, and I think today we're talking about Rahab.
We're talking about Rahab, but, before we talk about Rahab, we have to look and view the women in the Bible. And it's important that we look at the culture that they lived in. If we don't consider and understand the culture and understand that they were considered to be of no account, that men were pretty much dominant over women in anything in the culture area. And actually in Genesis 19:7-8, Lot says this that sort of gives you an idea of how women were considered. Lot says that he would throw his daughters out to these perverted men to do whatever they wanted to do with them. And what kind of man would do that? What kind of father would do that? But that was somewhat of the culture as to how they regarded women. The ancient culture, of course, was dominated by men. And Rahab shows up right after the Israelites go through the Jordan River. Jericho is right after they go through the river and is standing in the way of the Israelites getting to Canaan. When Joshua realized something had to be done with Jericho, he sent 2 spies into Jericho. You can find this story in Joshua 2 and Joshua 6, chapters 6. The 2 spies came to the house, and some call it the inn of Rahab. And it says right up front, the first couple of verses, that Rahab was a harlot. A harlot was a prostitution, and at that time there were 2 types of prostitutes. One was a temple prostitute who was used for worship in the pagan temples. And then there were those that were paid for sexual favors, and that's who Rahab was. Now, I mentioned that the inn, she may have been an innkeeper rather than just having a house there. Innkeepers, it was expected that part of their services were sexual favors given to the inhabitants. Now, the 2 spies went to Rahab's house. Why? Because her house or her inn were on the wall. The wall of Jericho was huge, and there were houses along the top of it, and even in it, okay? So they came there because it was so strategic. And they were soon discovered. After they arrived there and they were in Rahab's house or inn, they were discovered. And Rahab had to make a very, very big decision. She knew about the Israelites. She knew about the Israelite God. And she acted with great courage, and she hid the spies. And she was taking a risk to her own life because she could have been killed if she were caught. She knew that she was in a predicament. She had heard, as I said, of the Israelites and heard of their God. In Joshua 2, 9 and 11, she says this to them: I know that the Lord has given you the land, because our hearts melted for the Lord your God. He is God. He is the God above heaven and earth. She, at that time, made a conscious effort to save her family. And verse 12 of that chapter says that she says to the spies, Please, therefore, swear to me, since I have dealt kindly with you, that you will deal kindly with me, my father's household. Give me your pledge to spare my father and our mother and our brothers and our sisters and all things that belong to us, and to deliver us from death. She did not intend to die with the rest of the Jerichoans. So she did make a covenant with the spies, and they told her that her life belonged to them. And so she said, let them down with a rope over the side of the wall out the window of her inn or her house. And she had given the spies special instructions on how to avoid those that were searching for them. They actually gave her instructions of what to do when there was the march on Jericho. They gave her a scarlet ribbon to identify where she was on the wall. And she was to let that scarlet ribbon down through the wall so they could see where she and her family were. She was to have her entire family in her house in order to be saved. And in fact, she was told that if any of them were outside the house, their blood was on her hands, because they could not guarantee that they would be saved. So there was, no matter who you are and where you stand in your life. And if you act in faith and move towards the Almighty God through Jesus Christ, who is the truth and the life. By faith, Rachel and her family did not...
Rahab.
Oh, yes.
Rahab.
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Rahab and her family did not perish. Mm-hmm. And Rahab is not mentioned again in the Old Testament, but she is in the New Testament.
Yes.
Actually, Matthew 1:5 says, and Salmon was born Boaz by Rahab, and to Boaz was born Obed by Ruth, and Jesse and Obed were Jesse was the father of David, and David became king. Okay, now Hebrews 11:31 says that by faith Rahab and her family did not perish, and she made a move to help the Israelites. Then again in James 2:25 it says, by the same way Rahab was justified by her works. So she was justified in faith, but she also had works. And we also are to be justified in our belief and in our works. And she did work. She let the spies down, and then she gathered her family before the time of the ascent on Jericho. So that is a good message for all of us. It's an Old Testament story, and the Old Testament story is held true in the New Testament and even today, in that we are saved by faith, and we are to do works that actually take a little bit of effort on our part. So there we have Rahab.
I want to bring out this thought, because this has always amazed me, that, okay, so Ruth was married to Boaz.
Yes.
And so Ruth had Naomi as her mother-in-law, and she also had Rahab.
Yes.
Because Rahab was married to Salmon.
Yes.
And Salmon and Rahab had Boaz. Am I correct in that?
Sounds like that.
So
yes.
She was, and did she know her, the other mother-in-law? Can you imagine them all getting together and sharing what had happened with Rahab? And Ruth was an outsider coming in, and so was Rahab. And so can you only imagine the conversations they may have had?
We would have to do some research as to the time slots there to see if they were in the same generation.
Yeah, right.
But that is a good point to bring out.
And then I knew my great-grandmother. David's great-grandmother was Ruth, and then Rahab was in the line of David's grandmother. I knew my great-grandmother. So isn't that neat?
I knew my great-grandmother, not my great.
Yeah, I didn't know my great-grandmother, but it was so close that Ruth could tell David the stories about Rahab, and I'm sure that she did.
Even in our own life, I have wondered. I do know back 2 generations who the prayer warriors were, and who those stood in faith. But I have wondered behind who back here 2 or 3 or 4 generations prayed for my generation and for me.
My grandmother did, I know.
I have no doubt that my grandmother did, and my grandfather, and then after them, or the generation before them, I am not all that certain.
We're out of time.
Oh,
we're about out of time today, but isn't Rahab an interesting lady?
Yes.
And
it's interesting that she was not judged for what she did for her living.
She was received in to the married Salmon.
There was no condemnation on her.
All right. Well, praise God.
No condemnation on him.
And we know that there's no condemnation
On
in
us.
us as we believe in Jesus.
Yes.
So, and also, as I say every week, if you have Jesus, you always have hope.
You always have hope.
We'll see you next week.